I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We got married pretty young, and honestly, I thought we had a solid, good relationship. We had our arguments, sure, but I always believed that we were pretty much in sync. That was until the last few months when everything started to feel off, and I couldn't quite put my finger on why. It started with little things. Lisa was more irritable than usual, snapping at me over small stuff. Like, I'd ask her about her day and she'd brush me off, or she'd get defensive if I tried to bring up anything that seemed even remotely serious. She also started to spend a lot more time on her phone, hiding it when I got close or trying to sneak little notifications away. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was just stressed at work or overwhelmed with something. But then I noticed her avoiding me more and more, and the sex we used to have, that was practically gone. We'd have sex maybe once a month now if that, and even then it felt half-hearted. Our anniversary was coming up and I was planning a little trip for us, just the two of us, a weekend away at a nice place. I thought it would be a good chance to reconnect, maybe fix whatever was going on. But even during that trip, things felt weird. Lisa was distant, distracted, sometimes even cold. I caught her lying about little stuff. She'd say she was going out with friends, but then I'd see her posting photos with another guy, a guy I didn't know, and it was clear they'd been together for a while. That's when the doubts started to really gnaw at me. I remember sitting in the hotel room late at night, scrolling through her social media and suddenly noticing how many messages she'd been hiding. Some from this guy named Jake. They weren't just casual chats, they were flirtatious, sometimes explicitly sexual. I saw her talk about wanting to meet up, about how much she enjoyed cheating on me, and I felt like I had been sucker punched. The whole weekend, I was trying to act normal, but inside I was boiling. Then, of course, I found her phone when she left it on the nightstand. I didn't even mean to look, but I saw a message pop up. It was from Jake. Something about "can't wait to see you again" and a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. I clicked into her messages, and that's when I saw the full extent of it. There were dozens of texts, sexts, plans to meet up, and even more disturbing, her justifying it all with lies. She said she wasn't happy, that I was distant and boring, that she needed something more exciting, that she loved me but she was just having fun and it's not like I love him. Sure, Lisa, not like you love me when you're sleeping with my best man behind my back. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever, feeling my world collapse around me. I couldn't believe the woman I married, the person I trusted most, she'd been lying to my face for months. And the worst part, she was completely unapologetic when I confronted her. She shrugged, said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, and then threw in some bitchy comment about how I should lighten up because she works hard and deserves fun. That was the moment I realized I was dealing with someone who didn't respect me and probably never did. I felt so betrayed, so humiliated, like I'd been played for a fool. That's where I am now, trying to figure out what the hell I do with this mess. After I found those messages, I was numb for a long time. I didn't sleep that night, just kept staring at my phone, at her texts, at the photo she sent Jake of her in bed, captioned "can't wait to see you tonight." My mind was racing, trying to process everything. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I could have been so blind. I'd always believed she loved me, that we had something real. Turns out I was just a placeholder to her, someone safe, someone she could use while she chased her thrills. The next morning I knew I had to confront her. I woke her up, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to keep my voice steady. I told her I knew everything. She rolled over, looked me in the eyes with that typical bitchy smirk and said, "What are you talking about, Mark? You're crazy, you're overthinking again." That was her go-to line: deny, deny, deny. But I was done with the lies. I threw her phone on the bed right in front of her and said, "Tell me what this is," pointing at the messages. Her face changed just for a second, but I saw the flicker of guilt. Then she sat up, looked at me with that fake, innocent look she always puts on, and started lying again. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that Jake was just an old friend, that she didn't mean for it to go this far. She said she was just venting, that it was nothing serious, and that I was being paranoid. She even tried to turn it around on me, saying I'd been distant, that I wasn't paying enough attention, and that this was her way of reclaiming her happiness. I could see her spinning the story. She's a good liar, I'll give her that, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew she was lying, that I'd had enough and that I wanted her to leave. She threw a tantrum, of course, started yelling, calling me jealous, overbearing, insecure. She said I was the problem, that I was turning a blind eye to how boring and predictable our life had become, that I was the one cheating by not paying attention to her needs. But I already knew the truth. I could see it in her eyes. She didn't love me anymore, if she ever did. It was all about chasing some thrill, some excitement she thought I couldn't give her. And now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so naive. I was furious, but mostly hurt. Hurt because I loved her, and now I realized she'd been pretending for months. I felt like I'd been kicked in the gut, like everything I believed about her was a lie. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. I wanted to yell at her, to scream at her for all the lies, but I just stood there, watching her pack her bag, crying crocodile tears. She kept repeating, "This is what it looks like, and you're overreacting," as if that were enough to make everything okay. She left the house that morning, and I was left standing there alone with this crushing weight on my chest. I didn't know what to feel at first: shock, anger, disbelief, sadness. It was like my entire world had cracked open and I was standing in the rubble. I kept replaying everything she'd said and done, trying to find some reason, some justification. But there was none. Just a deep, gnawing sense that I'd been played for a fool, that I'd trusted someone who didn't deserve that trust. And now I was left to pick up the pieces, try to figure out what's next. Do I fight to save this marriage? Do I call it quits and walk away? The pain is still fresh, but I know one thing: I'll never look at her the same way again. Not after this. The days that followed were the worst of my life. Every time I tried to sleep, I saw her face, that fake innocent look she puts on when she's lying through her teeth. Every time I ate, I could taste the betrayal lingering. I kept going over the messages, the lies, the way she spun her stories. It was like some sick game she played, and I was just the fool who got played. I felt so stupid. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss all the signs? I used to think we had a good life, solid and steady. Turns out I was just a sucker. I didn't want to believe she was capable of this. I kept telling myself it had to be some misunderstanding, some terrible mistake. But deep down, I knew the truth. The evidence was right there, in her own words, in her own messages. She'd been cheating on me for months, probably even longer, and had the nerve to lie to my face, call me crazy, gaslight me into thinking I was the one losing it. That realization hit harder than anything else. It made me question everything about her, about us. The betrayal wasn't just about her cheating. It was the way she did it, the sneaking around, the lies, the manipulation. She turned herself into a victim, trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. She accused me of being paranoid and insecure, but I knew what I saw. I knew what she was trying to hide. Honestly, I felt anger building inside me, a rage that I hadn't known I was capable of. How dare she call me crazy when she was the one lying, cheating, gaslighting? She had been pretending to be this loving wife, the perfect partner, while she was out screwing around with my best man, Jake. That piece of shit knew exactly what he was doing. I was furious at him too. I reached out to a few friends, guys I trust, just to get some perspective. I needed to hear that I wasn't losing my mind, that I was right to be furious. They told me to confront her again, to ask her what she wanted, to see if she'd come clean. But honestly, I didn't even want to talk to her anymore. I wanted to rip her apart, to make her see how much she'd hurt me. The way she lied, it wasn't just about cheating. It was about her entire personality, her integrity, her respect for me. I felt like she'd broken every promise we ever made, every vow, because all she cared about was her own selfish pleasure. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece everything together. I was furious, but also deeply, painfully hurt. I kept thinking about all the good times, all the moments I thought were real. I wondered how she could look me in the eyes and lie so convincingly. And I kept asking myself if I could ever forgive her, if there was any way back from this. I knew I wasn't ready to make a decision right then, But I also knew I couldn't stay with her, not after what I'd discovered. The worst part was feeling so helpless. I wanted to punish her, to make her understand what she'd lost, but I didn't know how. I was just a man who'd been played, betrayed by the woman he loved most. The thought of her with Jake, the one person I trusted the most besides her, made my stomach turn. I felt like I'd been thrown into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. And yet I knew I had to face reality sooner or later. The pain was raw, but it was real. I was starting to realize that maybe I deserved better, that someone who could cheat and then gaslight me was not worth my time or my feelings. So I sat there, trying to figure out what to do next. I didn't want to let her win. I didn't want her to think she could get away with all this. I knew I had to make a choice, and it had to be the right one for me. I didn't want to stay, but I also didn't want to hurt more, to become someone I hated. I just wanted to find some clarity in the chaos, some reason to keep going. Because right now I was lost, trying to hold on to whatever shred of dignity I had left. The decision to confront her again didn't come easily, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo. Each day felt like a punch to the gut, and I needed to hear the truth from her again, or at least, I needed to see if she'd finally admit everything. So I reached out and asked her to come back. When she showed up that evening, her face was a mask of indifference, like she didn't care what I had to say. I could see her trying to act like everything was normal, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I started by laying everything out: the messages, the pictures, the lies. Her reaction was classic. She looked surprised, then annoyed, then defensive. She kept insisting I was making a big deal out of nothing, that Jake was just a friend, and that I was overreacting because I'm insecure. She threw in some classic gaslighting lines: "You're imagining things. You always jump to conclusions, and you're just jealous because I've been busy." But I wasn't buying it. I told her I saw the messages, I knew she was lying, and I wanted an honest answer. Her response: she started biting back, trying to turn the tables on me. Said I'd been distant, that I'd been neglectful, that I didn't pay enough attention to her. She called me controlling and paranoid, and then accused me of cheating myself because I wasn't giving her what she needed. It was like she was determined to make me doubt myself, to convince me that I was the crazy one. I could see her trying to manipulate my feelings, just like she'd been doing all along, but I refused to fall for it. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses, that I knew she'd been lying for months, and that I didn't want to be married to someone who betrayed me like this. She looked furious, then started crying crocodile tears. Said she was sorry, that she made a mistake, that she didn't mean to hurt me, and that she still loved me, but her words felt hollow. I realized she was just trying to guilt-trip me into forgiving her, to keep the illusion alive that she was still the woman I married. But I was done. I told her she needed to leave, that I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I told her I needed space, time to think, and that I didn't want to see her again until I was ready. Watching her walk out that door, I felt a strange mix of relief and despair. Relief because I finally took a stand, and despair because I knew this was only the beginning of what might be a long road to healing if I even chose to stay. Honestly, part of me still hung on to hope that she'd come back and say she was sorry, that she'd change. But most of me knew better. The girl I thought I knew was gone. This wasn't just about cheating, it was about trust, respect, and a fundamental betrayal that cut so deep I wasn't sure I could ever fix it. The next few days were a blur. I stayed at a friend's place for a while, trying to keep my head straight. I kept replaying everything: her lies, her gaslighting, her constant denial. I realized I'd been a fool to believe she was the woman I married. She'd been pretending, hiding her true self behind a fake smile and sweet words. I started to see her as just someone else, a manipulative, selfish person who only cared about herself. That realization was painful, but also freeing. I knew I couldn't keep living in her shadow, doubting myself, or feeling guilty for catching her. I finally made up my mind. I was ending it. I didn't want that kind of betrayal in my life anymore. I deserved better than someone who would cheat, lie, and gaslight me. I knew it wouldn't be easy to let go of the years we shared, but I also knew that staying would only make me miserable. It was time to reclaim my life, rebuild my sense of self, and move on from this nightmare. It's not about revenge, it's about survival. protecting what's left of my dignity and respect. That's what I told myself as I packed my things and prepared to start over, knowing full well that I'd never forget what she did, but that I'd learn to live with it. The aftermath was a storm I never saw coming. I'll admit, at first I thought about just blocking her out completely, cutting all contact and pretending this never happened. But deep down, I knew I needed closure not just for myself, but to truly move forward. So I decided to face it head-on, even if it meant reopening wounds I wasn't eager to deal with. I reached out to Jake, the guy who had been sleeping with my wife on my anniversary trip. I needed to know what the hell he was thinking, if he knew how much he'd hurt me, and to hear it straight from him. When I finally confronted Jake, I was angry. Not just angry, furious. I told him how much he'd betrayed me, how he played a role in destroying what little trust I had left. I asked him if he knew she was married, if he cared. His response was a cocky shrug and some bullshit about "it's just sex," as if that made it okay. I told him he was a piece of shit for messing with a married woman, especially one who's supposed to be my best man. His attitude only made my blood boil. I wanted to punch him, but I held back. I just told him to stay the hell away from me and my life. That conversation didn't bring me any peace, but it clarified things. Jake's a selfish asshole, and Lisa is a manipulative bitch. They're both responsible for this mess. I also found out Jake knew exactly what she was doing, that she'd been sneaking around even before our trip. That stung even more. She had been planning this, hiding it from me, and I was just a pawn in her game. The realization that she'd been lying to everyone, including her own friends and family, made me feel sick. She'd spun such a web of lies that I started questioning everything I knew about her, about us. After all that, I started to reflect on what I really wanted. The truth is, I still love her, at least I did. But I also hate her for what she did. I hated feeling so betrayed, so foolish. I'd been blindsided, played by people I trusted most. The pain was intense, but it also made me realize I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't make a mockery of everything we ever built. I had to accept that moving on wasn't just about ending the relationship. It was about healing, rebuilding my sense of self, and learning how to trust again, or at least trust myself to recognize red flags. So I took some time for myself. I cut ties with Lisa completely, blocked her on every social media platform, and told her not to contact me anymore. I started therapy, not because I thought I was crazy, but because I needed to understand how to rebuild my self-esteem after all the lies and gaslighting. I also started doing things I loved again, reconnecting with friends, focusing on my career, and trying to get rid of the anger that kept bubbling up inside. It's not easy. Some nights I still lie awake thinking about her, about Jake, about how I ever let it get this far. But I know I have to keep moving forward. I'm not the same person I was when all this started, and honestly, I don't want to be. The betrayal taught me a lot about trust, about what to look for in a partner, and most importantly, about my own worth. I can't control what she did, but I can control how I respond. The biggest lesson: never ignore the signs. Never let someone gaslight you into believing you're crazy. And most of all, don't settle for someone who cheats and manipulates. You're worth more than that. I'm still healing, still figuring things out, but I'm finally starting to feel like I might be able to breathe again. Now, looking back, I realize that this whole experience has changed me in ways I never expected. It's a bitter lesson in trust and betrayal, but also in resilience. I've come to understand that sometimes the only way to truly move forward is to face the pain head-on, no matter how uncomfortable or overwhelming it feels at the time. I won't lie, it's been a long road, and there are still days when I feel the sting of what I lost, of the betrayal. But those days are getting fewer, and the strength I've gained from surviving this mess is growing every day. I've learned to listen to my gut more, to pay attention to the small signs that something's not right. I've also realized that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect, not just from a partner, but from myself. The biggest takeaway is that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can rebuild your life if you're willing to accept the truth, face your feelings, and take control of your future. It's about reclaiming your dignity after someone tried to take it away. For anyone out there going through something similar, I want to say this: don't let their lies define you. Don't second-guess yourself, even if they try to make you feel crazy. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to walk away if that's what you need to do. Sometimes, love isn't enough, especially when the person you love turns out to be someone you barely recognize. It hurts, but it also teaches you what you truly value in life and in yourself. I'm not perfect, and I still have moments of anger and sadness, but I'm moving forward one day at a time. I'm rebuilding my confidence, my sense of self-worth, and I'm finally starting to feel hope again. It's a slow process, but I know I'll get there. And even though I never thought I'd be the guy telling this story, I do know one thing for sure: I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, and I'll be okay.